Well, energy analyst Chris Yelland has been leading the charge on this issue, and he joins us now. Chris, you, like the BBC, the Black Business Council, also thought initially that this looked like a bit of an April Fool's joke. Eskom confirming it. It's interesting what Hanki Matabane was saying is that Eskom's explanation is that it's not going to be in the annual financial reports, but it will be in the Eskom integrated report, sort of suggesting there's some technical reason why they need to do this. He's saying that doesn't make any sense, and it's contradictory. You've been following this story. What have you been able to find out today?
Well, I also think it's contradictory, by the way, because, you know, if this was a technical accounting matter, then it wouldn't be in place today. I mean, on Friday the 31st, the very same day that Eskom released its interim annual financial statements. It also wouldn't be in place only for 3 years. If there's a technical accounting matter, you'd expect it to be in place, going forward. So it just doesn't make sense. And to have it, not in the annual financial statements, but in the consolidated Eskom report, I don't know what it is trying to achieve, other than creating, some very negative perceptions amongst the citizenry of South Africa, as well as amongst the lenders to Eskom. Why would they do this? Now, in the letter from the minister to the chairperson of Eskom, Mpho Mokwana, remember, this was a request by the Eskom chairman for exemption from the PFMA in order not to disclose irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And the minister then responded, and therein you can see some of the rationale that was given or was being put forward by the chairperson, that they felt that by including this in the annual financial statements, it would prejudice or it could create a situation where the auditors of Eskom, would not give Eskom a clean audit. In other words, they'd give them a qualified audit, and this would then, upset the relationship with lenders and the credit rating agencies. So it kind of gives the impression that they try to play some game to take it out of the annual financial statements in order to avoid a qualified audit and avoid negative reaction by the rating agency. But it doesn't make sense, because then it is going to be published in the consolidated report. So we're still waiting, actually, for a media briefing or a media release by Eskom and by Treasury to kind of explain the situation. Most of us are just baffled.
Yeah, we do know that my colleague Ropiyo Madzene is going to be speaking to the CFO of Eskom at about 1:30 the hour on eNCA tonight. So we'll listen with interest to understand this, because if you're trying to make your annual reports look a little better, that could also be seen as trying to hoodwink interested parties. And as you say, it's anyway there in the integrated report. So you don't actually mask it in long term. So we look forward to hearing what Eskom has to say about that, because there's certainly been a huge reaction to this today. I think any suggestion of trying to cover up any kind of wrongdoing is problematic. I want to move on, though, to where we're at. We're moving back into stages 3 and 4 of load shedding. We're getting closer to winter, where we know there's normally more of a pull on electricity because it's colder. And then you put something on social media this afternoon, and we're going to put it up. It's not easy to see the detail, but I think really, as we put this graphic up full screen, I think our viewers just need to look at the red in that far right column. This, my understanding, and Chris, you'll jump in here, is a 52-week scenario risk planning that Eskom has provided itself. And red is basically what you expect it to be. Talk us through this and what it means to you.
Yeah, so every week, Eskom publish on their website what is known as the system status report. This is a requirement by the regulator. This report gets submitted to the regulator, and it also gets published on the Eskom website. So this is not me that is putting out this information. This is Eskom putting out the information. And amongst this report is this table. And this table looks at the next 52 weeks, each week for the next 52 weeks. And it does a forecast of the likely risk scenario. the expected the scenario, and that is the far right-hand column. And each week, is one of the lines, the horizontal lines on that table, and it looks at the 52 weeks forward from today. And they color code this. Each week is color coded either green or yellow or orange or red. Red meaning there is a very high risk of load shedding. And the message I think that one takes away from this is that load shedding is not something that is going to disappear suddenly. And any thoughts that things are suddenly going to improve, well, that's not what Eskom think. Eskom are telling us that it's here for the whole of this year, every single week. And you can imagine that it's not going to suddenly disappear, after 53 weeks. So we're going to, every week, this gets extended by another week. So it's a continuous sort of rolling picture. And the picture is not very encouraging, and it paints a forecast by Eskom itself of ongoing load shedding. Mm-hmm. We are experiencing at stage 3 and stage 4 at the moment, and it's likely to continue for the rest of the year.
So does that scenario risk planning, so red means, really strong chance of load shedding. We, of course, as South Africans have become quite used to managing stages 1 and 2. When we're looking at stages 3, 4, 5, 6, then it really starts to bite a little more. Does that risk scenario picture, does it indicate when we might have potentially higher levels of load shedding? I mean, I suppose I'm trying to get a sense of, do we know what winter's going to look like?
No, and I don't think anybody can be too specific about what level of load shedding we're likely to be on, because by its very nature, load shedding results from unplanned breakdowns, and by its nature, it's unplanned. So we don't actually know what it's going to be. And one can have good weeks, one can have bad weeks, one can have very good weeks and very bad weeks. We've had, a week that wasn't too bad. In fact, we had one day, I think, 1 or 2 days where we had no load shedding. But for the rest of that week, we did have load shedding. And since then, things have reverted to a kind of stage 3 to stage 4 load shedding that we have now. And it's just as likely that we might have stage 5 or 6, or just as likely that there could be a good week and drop down from 3 and 4 to stage 2 and 1, and even maybe none for a limited period. But you have to look at this trend of the past in order to get a feeling for what's in the future. Can't be specific about the future, exactly, week by week, but one can sort of imagine, and see the direction of the trend. And one's got to look at the history, not of 1 week, not of 1 day, not of 1 hour, but one's really got to look at, trend over a much longer period, typically a month or 6 months or a year, in order to really understand whether there is any sustainable improvement in load shedding going forward or not.
Yeah, and in that picture, that graphic you showed us, it doesn't show, I mean, one could have a bit of hope if towards the end of that list you started seeing more orange, Evenson, green and yellow. Then you go, oh, look, it looks like we're starting to slowly emerge. There's no sign of that for the next 52 weeks, according to Eskom's very own predictions. I want to ask you a little bit more about the electricity minister. He's been doing the rounds, looking at various power stations. He was at Coburg as well, which I understand is also having some difficulties in its refurbishment, which may further worsen the load shedding picture. Do you think he's making a difference? And I ask that in the light of the controversy that's come about with him seemingly downplaying the role of corruption when he was, I think it was at Tutuka when he said that, which was pretty unfortunate, bearing in mind that's one of the worst hit. We're trying to understand if it's just him with his engineer's cap on, thinking just of engineering. A lot of flack, though, and one wonders whether he's helping or just muddying the waters. Is it too early to say, Chris?
It is too early to say, but I think it's not a bad move, to do a tour of the power stations. It's not so much a case of that he can, spot corruption as he's walking around Kusile, or make sure that something is fixed while he's looking at it. It's not about that. It's about the messaging to the people of Eskom that he's the new man on the block, that he's getting stuck in and rolling up his sleeves and getting to know and understand the organization, So I think it's an important message that he's putting out. But to think that one person can suddenly make a difference is not realistic, and nor can you expect a board even in 6 months. I mean, a board is not there on the ground. They don't make executive decisions. That is, the role of the exco at Eskom, the various layers of management, and the people on the ground at power station, engineers, technicians, managers, artisans, and workers. These are the people that are going to make the difference. And I don't think it's a bad thing that Mr. Makgopa has actually taken the trouble to go out, meet them, engage with them, and instill, hopefully, some new confidence that this problem can be solved. It certainly can be solved. It is not insoluble. And there are very, very, very few countries in the world that experience stage 3, 4, 5, 6 load shedding for many hours a day. So every other country in the world just about has been able to solve this problem. There's absolutely no reason why South Africa shouldn't as well. And I really look forward to him making a difference. But it's not a one-man difference. It's a complete organization from top to bottom that needs to be reinvented and mobilized with a new vision throughout the organization.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening, Chris Yelland, energy analyst there. And of course, we're going to get more details from the Eskom CFO about that exemption at about 6:30.